Rome, 1964. Sergio Leone sits alone in a cramped editing room, smoking his 20th cigarette of the day. On the table in front of him lies a contract dispute, a film he made for $200,000, and a decision that will either destroy his career or change cinema forever. He picks up a pen and draws a line through Clint Eastwood's name, not out of spite, not out of anger, but because sometimes the only way to protect something is to make it disappear. To understand this moment, you need to understand who Sergio Leone was in 1964. He's 35 years old, a failed director of sword and sandal films nobody remembers. He's watched Hollywood westerns his entire life with a kind of religious devotion. John Ford, Howard Hawks, Anthony Mann. These are his gods. But Leone sees something in the American Western that Americans don't see. He sees the lie underneath the mythology, the lie that the West was about honor and justice. Leone knows better. He grew up in fascist Italy, watched his country torn apart by ideology and violence, watched men kill each other over symbols and flags. And he knows that the American West wasn't different. It was just dressed up prettier. Men killed for money, for land, for survival. The white hats and black hats were just theater. Leone wants to make a Western that strips away the theater, that shows the West as it really was. Brutal, cynical, beautiful. A place where heroes don't exist, only men trying not to die. But Italian Westerns are a joke. Nobody takes them seriously. They're cheap knockoffs of American films, made with no budget, no talent, terrible dubbing. If Leone makes an Italian Western, he'll be laughed out of the industry. But he doesn't have a choice. No American studio will hire him. No Italian studio trusts him with a real budget, so he takes what he can get. A German producer named Arrigo Colombo offers him $200,000 to make a Western in Spain. It's not enough money. It's barely enough to cover film stock and actors. But Leone says yes because it's the only offer he has. The script is an unlicensed remake of Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. Leone knows this is legally questionable, possibly disastrous. But he doesn't care. Kurosawa's story about a wandering samurai who plays two crime families against each other is perfect for what Leone wants to do. He can transplant it to the American West, strip it of all sentiment, make it ugly and real. Now he needs a star. Someone who looks like they've been through hell. Someone who doesn't need to act tough because toughness is already in their bones. He needs someone American audiences will recognize, but Italian audiences won't care about. Someone cheap. He finds Clint Eastwood. Clint is 34 years old, stuck playing Rowdy Yates on a TV show called Rawhide. It's steady work, decent money, but it's not a career. It's a holding pattern, and Clint knows it. He's been in Hollywood for a decade, done bit parts in monster movies and war films, never broken through. He's starting to think he never will. When his agent tells him about an Italian Western shooting in Spain for $15,000, Clint's first reaction is to say no. Italian Westerns are garbage. This will ruin whatever credibility he has left. But his agent convinces him. It's 3 months in Europe, a free vacation, and $15,000 is more than he's making per episode on Rawhide. Clint agrees. Not because he believes in the project, because he has nothing to lose. He flies to Rome in May 1964, meets Leone for the first time in a cafe near the Spanish Steps. Leone doesn't speak English. Clint doesn't speak Italian. They communicate through an interpreter, a young woman named Maria who keeps apologizing for how poorly things are being translated. Leone describes his vision. A Western with no heroes, a man with no name who kills for money and walks away. The camera will move differently. The violence will feel real. The music will be strange, almost operatic. It will be like nothing anyone has seen before. Clint listens. He doesn't understand half of what Leone is saying, but he sees something in the director's eyes, a kind of obsession, a refusal to compromise. And Clint recognizes it because he has the same thing, the same stubbornness, the same unwillingness to do things the way everyone else does them. They fly to Spain. The set is a disaster. The town they're using is a collection of facades held up by wooden beams. The extras are local farmers who've never acted. The guns are prop weapons that jam constantly. The heat is unbearable. And Leone speaks no English, so every direction has to be translated, then retranslated, then interpreted by Clint, who has to figure out what the hell Leone actually wants. Most directors would panic. Most actors would quit. But Leone and Clint don't panic. They just work. Leone shoots the same scene 20 times until it feels right. Clint stands in the sun for hours, barely moving, barely speaking, letting his face do all the work. They don't discuss motivation or backstory. They don't need to. Leone shows Clint where to stand, how to move. Clint does it, and somehow it works. The film is called A Fistful of Dollars. It wraps in 6 weeks. Leone edits it himself in Rome over the next 4 months. He watches the footage obsessively, cuts scenes that don't work, reshapes the entire structure, and slowly he realizes he's made something extraordinary, something that could change everything. But there's a problem, a massive problem. Kurosawa's production company has heard about the film. They know it's an unauthorized remake of Yojimbo, and they're threatening to sue, not just for damages, for all the rights to the film, for distribution, for everything. If Kurosawa's lawyers win, Leone will lose A Fistful of Dollars entirely. The Italian producers panic. They tell Leone to shelve the film, to bury it, to pretend it never existed. But Leone refuses. He knows this film is his only chance. If he gives up now, he'll spend the rest of his life making forgettable sword and sandal movies. He'll be nobody. So he makes a decision, a desperate, possibly insane decision. He's going to release the film in Italy under a pseudonym. He's going to remove his name from the credits. And he's going to remove Clint Eastwood's name too. Not because he wants to. Because if Kurosawa's lawyers can't identify the director or the star, they can't sue, at least not immediately. It buys him time. Clint finds out through a phone call from his agent. Leone has removed your name from the Italian release. They're crediting you as Dan Savio, some made-up actor who doesn't exist. Clint is furious, not because he thinks the film is important, he hasn't even seen it, but because his name is all he has. His reputation, his career, everything he's worked for is tied to his name. And Leone just erased it. He calls Leone. Through the interpreter, he demands an explanation. Leone's response is calm, almost indifferent. This is temporary. When the legal issues are resolved, your name will be restored. But right now, we have to protect the film. Protect it from what? From Kurosawa, from his lawyers, from anyone who wants to destroy it. Clint doesn't understand. In Hollywood, you protect your investment by crediting the stars, by marketing them, by making them visible. Leone is doing the opposite. He's making them invisible. But Leone doesn't work like Hollywood. He works like a guerrilla fighter. Hide what's valuable. Strike when the enemy isn't looking. Survive long enough to win. A Fistful of Dollars premieres in Florence in September 1964 under a pseudonym. No publicity, no marketing. Just a quiet release in a handful of theaters. The producers expect it to disappear. They expect audiences to ignore it. But something happens. Something nobody predicted. People start talking. Not critics, not industry professionals. Regular people. They've never seen a Western like this. The violence is shocking. The hero is barely heroic. The music is bizarre, almost hypnotic. And there's something about the man in the poncho, the man with no name, that stays with them long after the film ends. Word spreads. More theaters pick it up. Within 3 weeks, A Fistful of Dollars is playing in 50 Italian cities. Within 2 months, it's the highest-grossing film in Italy. Leone's gamble worked. By hiding the film, by removing the names, by releasing it quietly, he let the work speak for itself. No stars, no hype, just a story that people couldn't stop watching. Now he has a new problem. Kurosawa's lawyers are paying attention. They've seen the box office numbers. They know Leone made an unauthorized remake, and they're coming for him. Leone doesn't run. He doesn't hide. He sends a letter to Kurosawa, not through lawyers, not through intermediaries, directly to the director. In the letter, Leone admits everything. Yes, he remade Yojimbo without permission. Yes, he knew it was illegal, but he explains why. He tells Kurosawa that he grew up watching his films, that Yojimbo was one of the greatest things he'd ever seen, that he wasn't trying to steal, but to honor. To take Kurosawa's story and transplant it to another world, another genre, another way of seeing. He offers Kurosawa a percentage of the profits, not because he has to legally, because it's right. Kurosawa's response takes 3 months. When it arrives, it's not angry. It's not forgiving either. It's businesslike. Kurosawa's lawyers will take 15% of the worldwide distribution rights. Leone will credit Kurosawa's original story in all future releases. And A Fistful of Dollars will be allowed to exist. Leone agrees immediately. He doesn't care about the money. He cares about the film surviving. And now it will. With the legal issues resolved, Leone restores Clint Eastwood's name to the credits. The film is re-released across Europe with proper marketing, proper credits, proper distribution, and it becomes a phenomenon, not just in Italy, in France, Germany, Spain, Japan, everywhere except America. American distributors won't touch it. They think it's too strange, too violent, too un-American. A Western made by Italians where the hero barely speaks and kills without remorse? It'll never work. But Clint knows better. He's seen the European reaction. He's seen the box office numbers. And he realizes something that changes his entire understanding of his career. Leone didn't remove his name to hurt him. Leone removed his name to save the film. And by saving the film, Leone saved Clint's career. Because now, European audiences know who Clint Eastwood is. They know the man with no name, and they want more. Leone makes 2 more films with Clint, for a few dollars more, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Each one is bigger, stranger, more ambitious than the last, and each one cements Clint's status as an international star. By 1967, American studios can't ignore him anymore. The Dollars trilogy has made too much money overseas. United Artists finally acquires the American distribution rights, and when A Fistful of Dollars opens in the U.S. in January 1967, it becomes a massive hit. Clint Eastwood is no longer Rowdy Yates. He's a movie star, and it's all because Leone had the courage to make him disappear. Years later, a journalist asks Clint about that moment, about how it felt to have his name removed from the credits. Clint is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "Leone did what he had to do. I didn't understand it at the time. I was angry. But he was protecting something bigger than either of us. He was protecting the work." And that's the thing most people don't understand about filmmaking. It's not about ego. It's not about credit. It's about the work. And sometimes the best thing you can do for the work is get out of its way. Leone never apologized for removing Clint's name. He never explained himself publicly. He just did what he believed was necessary and moved on. That's who Sergio Leone was. A man who cared more about cinema than credit, more about truth than recognition. In that editing room in Rome in 1964, when Leone drew a line through Clint Eastwood's name, he wasn't erasing him. He was protecting him, protecting the film, protecting the work. And in doing so, he taught Clint something that would define the rest of his career. That power isn't about visibility. It's about integrity, that sometimes the greatest act of respect is to remove yourself from the spotlight and let the work shine. That ego is the enemy of art. Clint carried that lesson for the next 60 years. When he became a director, he never demanded credit. He never fought for his name above the title. He just made the films and let them speak. Because that's what Leone taught him. Not through words, through action. A Fistful of Dollars changed cinema. It created an entire genre, the spaghetti western. It influenced filmmakers from Sam Peckinpah to Quentin Tarantino. It made Clint Eastwood into an icon. But before it could do any of that, it had to survive. And the only way it could survive was to disappear. That's the legacy of Sergio Leone and Clint Eastwood. Not the films they made together, though those are masterpieces. The understanding between them. The trust, the willingness to sacrifice ego for something greater. Most collaborations in Hollywood are transactional. Director and actor use each other to advance their careers, then move on. But Leone and Clint were different. They understood that they were servants of the work, that the film mattered more than their names on the poster, and that understanding created something that outlived them both. On a quiet street in Rome in 1964, Sergio Leone made a decision that should have destroyed his career and Clint Eastwood's. He removed their names, made them invisible, bet everything on the work, and the work survived. Not because it had famous names attached, because it was true, because it was honest, because it refused to lie about what the West was or what men are capable of when pushed to the edge. That's the story behind the story. Not a betrayal, not a conflict, a sacrifice. Made quietly, without explanation, in service of something larger. Leone never asked for forgiveness. Clint never demanded an apology. They just moved forward. Made 2 more films, created a legacy, and somewhere in that collaboration, they proved that the greatest artists aren't the ones who fight for credit. They're the ones who understand that credit means nothing if the work isn't worth remembering. That's Sergio Leone. That's Clint Eastwood, 2 stubborn men who understood that sometimes you have to disappear to be seen, that sometimes the only way to protect something is to let it go, and in letting go, they created something immortal. If you want more stories about the quiet moments that changed cinema, about the decisions made in silence that echo for decades, this is where they live.